Venice in the 1700s was one of Europe's most magnificent and mysterious cities. With a population of around 140,000, it remained a major trading hub, cultural magnet, and diplomatic crossroads, even as its political power slowly faded. The canals, palaces, and piazzas we recognize today were already centuries old, bustling with merchants, artists, spies, and travelers from across the continent. In this video, I used modern AI tools to bring historic paintings, engravings, and prints to life, allowing us to shift perspective, change camera angles, and move through the same scenes in ways their original artists never could. First, I want to talk about Piazza San Marco. This view shows Piazza San Marco on a bright afternoon in the early 1700s. The vast open square stretches toward the lagoon, framed by the arcaded procurati buildings on both sides. In the foreground, merchants spread their wares on wooden tables. In the midground, clusters of gentlemen in tricorn hats and dark cloaks conduct business, while servants in brighter fabrics weave between them. The skyline is dominated by the Campanile, the tall brick bell tower that has stood here since the early 900s, and the domes of St. Mark's Basilica rising just beyond. The square is alive with motion. Pigeons scatter as children chase them. A street performer juggles near the clock tower. The smell of roasted chestnuts mixes with salt air from the lagoon. You hear the low murmur of Venetian dialect, bursts of laughter, the clatter of wooden clogs on stone. But the square is also a place of surveillance. Informants report to the Council of Ten, Venice's secret police. Foreigners are watched. Political rumors spread in whispers. A merchant caught smuggling might disappear into the Doge's palace prisons. The city's power depends on control, and this square is the stage where that control is performed. Piazza San Marco is the ceremonial heart of the Republic. State processions begin here. Ambassadors are received here. It is the face Venice shows to the world. By 1720, the square had been paved with geometric patterns of white stone, creating the elegant design visitors still walk on today. Remarkably, this is a site you can still visit today, and the layout has barely changed in 3 centuries.
This is the Rialto Bridge. This view shows the Rialto Bridge in the early morning, just as the markets are opening. The stone arch, completed in 1591, spans the Grand Canal at its narrowest point. Gondolas and flat-bottomed cargo boats crowd the water below, some stacked with crates of spices, others carrying barrels of wine. On the bridge itself, 2 rows of shops line either side, their wooden shutters opening to reveal silk merchants, jewelers, and money changers. The bridge is packed. Porters balance heavy sacks on their shoulders. A woman in a long skirt haggles over the price of lace. A priest in black robes moves carefully through the crush. The smell is overwhelming. Fish, sweat, leather, and the damp stone of the canal. Voices echo off the water. But the bridge is also a bottleneck. Pickpockets work the crowd. Arguments erupt over blocked paths. In summer, the heat makes the packed bodies nearly unbearable. In winter, the stone becomes slick with rain and algae from the canal spray. A misstep could mean a fall into the cold, filthy water below. The Rialto is the commercial center of Venice. Fortunes are made and lost here. Contracts are signed in the shadow of the bridge. News from distant ports arrives here first, carried by sailors and traders. By the mid-1700s, the bridge had become an iconic symbol of Venetian commerce, immortalized in countless paintings and engravings. Today, the Rialto Bridge remains one of Venice's most photographed landmarks, still lined with shops, still crowded with tourists and locals alike. This view shows the Grand Canal. This view shows the Grand Canal from a gondola's perspective, looking toward the curve near Ca' Foscari. Venetian palaces rise on both sides, their Gothic and Renaissance facades painted in shades of ochre, pink, and cream. Balconies jut out over the water. Laundry hangs from iron railings. In the foreground, a gondolier in a striped shirt leans into his oar, guiding his narrow black boat through the traffic. The canal is a moving highway. Heavy barges loaded with lumber drift slowly past. Faster gondolas dart between them, their passengers shouting greetings or insults. Water slaps against the palace foundations. The smell of seaweed and canal muck rises in the heat. You hear the rhythmic splash of oars, the creak of rope, the distant bells of a dozen churches. But the canal is also dangerous. Boats collide. Cargo falls overboard. The water is contaminated with waste from hundreds of households. In winter, fog rolls in so thick that even experienced gondoliers lose their way. Accidents are common, and the canal claims lives every year. The Grand Canal is the main artery of Venice, the route by which everything and everyone moves through the city. Nobles travel by private gondola. Merchants ship their goods. Visitors arrive by water, their first glimpse of Venice framed by these elegant, crumbling palaces. By 1750, many of the wealthiest families had begun to abandon their palazzos, moving to estates on the mainland, but the canal remained the symbolic and practical center of Venetian life. Today, the Grand Canal still carries vaporetti, gondolas, and water taxis, and the palaces lining its banks are among the most valuable real estate in Europe. This is the Arsenal. This view shows the Arsenal, Venice's massive shipyard, from the entrance near the Twin Towers. The high brick walls stretch into the distance, enclosing workshops, dry docks, and warehouses. In the foreground, workers in leathered aprons haul timber planks. In the midground, a half-built galley rests on wooden supports, its ribs exposed like a skeleton. Smoke rises from forges where iron fittings are hammered into shape. The air is thick with tar, sawdust, and sweat. You hear the rhythmic pounding of hammers, the rasp of saws, the shouts of foremen directing teams of laborers. The arsenal operates like a machine. At its peak in earlier centuries, it could build a complete warship in a single day. By the 1700s, that pace has slowed, but the arsenal remains one of the largest industrial complexes in Europe. But it is also a place of harsh labor. Workers toil in dangerous conditions. Fires break out in the tar stores. Accidents with heavy timber or hoisting equipment are frequent. The arsenal is guarded, secretive. Outsiders are not welcome. The techniques used here are state secrets, protected by Venice's intelligence network. The arsenal is the foundation of Venice's naval power. For centuries, the galleys built here dominated the Mediterranean, protecting Venetian trade routes and projecting the Republic's influence. By the 1700s, Venice's fleet had shrunk, and the arsenal was no longer the engine of imperial expansion it once was, but it remained a symbol of the Republic's engineering prowess and its long maritime tradition. Today, the arsenal remains a place for museums, art exhibitions, and the Venice Biennale, but much of the original structure survives, a reminder of the city's industrial past.
This view shows the Doge's palace. This view shows the Doge's palace from the waterfront, framed by the columns of the Piazzetta. The Gothic facade, with its pointed arches and pink and white marble, gleams in the afternoon light. In the foreground, a group of officials in black robes climbs the steps toward the entrance. In the midground, guards in ceremonial armor stand watch. The lagoon stretches behind, dotted with the sails of distant ships. Inside, the palace is a labyrinth. Grand halls with gilded ceilings and enormous paintings by Tintoretto and Veronese, narrow staircases leading to council chambers, and below, the notorious prison cells where political enemies and criminals await trial or execution. The palace smells of incense, old wood, and the faint tang of the lagoon seeping through the foundations. But the palace is also a place of fear. The Bridge of Sighs, completed in 1600, connects the palace to the new prison across the canal. Prisoners cross it for the last time, catching a final glimpse of Venice through the stone lattice before disappearing into darkness. Torture is used to extract confessions. The Council of 10 meets in secret, and their decisions are final. The Doge's palace is the seat of Venice's government. The Doge, elected for life, resides here, though his power is limited by the aristocratic councils that actually run the Republic. Ambassadors are received in the palace's grand halls, laws are debated, justice is administered. By the 1720s, Venice's political system was seen as a model of republican governance, even as it struggled to compete with rising powers like France and Austria. Remarkably, the Doge's Palace remains one of Venice's most visited monuments, and much of its interior, including the prison cells and the Bridge of Sighs, is open to the public. This view shows a carnival scene in a narrow cale during the 1730s. The street is packed with masked figures. In the foreground, a man in a white bauta mask and black cloak leans against a wall. In the midground, a woman in an elaborate gown and feathered mask laughs with a group of companions. Lanterns hang from windows above, casting flickering light on the cobblestones. The air is electric. Music drifts from a nearby palazzo where a private ball is underway. Street vendors sell roasted nuts and sweet pastries. The smell of wine and perfume mixes with the cold night air. Laughter and shouting echo off the walls. Carnival lasts for weeks, and during that time, Venice becomes a city of anonymity and excess. But Carnival is also dangerous. Masks allow people to settle scores without being recognized. Theft is rampant. Fights break out. The city's moral order, already fragile, collapses entirely. Prostitutes work openly. Gambling dens overflow. The authorities turn a blind eye, knowing that Carnival brings money and visitors, but also knowing that it could spiral out of control. Carnival is Venice's most famous tradition, a release valve for a rigid society, a time when class distinctions blur and the city indulges in pleasure and spectacle. By the mid-1700s, Carnival had become a major draw for European tourists who flocked to Venice to experience its masks, music, and mystery. Today, Carnival is still celebrated every February, and the masks and costumes of the 1700s remain the festival's defining image. This view shows a Venetian coffee house. This view shows the interior of a coffee house near Piazza San Marco in the 1740s. The room is small, with low wooden ceilings and walls lined with benches. In the foreground, a group of men in wigs and fine coats sit around a table, deep in conversation. In the midground, a waiter in a simple vest pours coffee from a copper pot. The smell of roasted coffee beans fills the air, mixing with pipe tobacco and the faint salt breeze through the open door. Coffee houses are the nerve centers of Venetian intellectual life. Here, philosophers debate, merchants exchange news, spies gather information. The Gazzetta Veneta, one of Europe's first newspapers, is read aloud. Ideas from the Enlightenment circulate in these rooms, alongside gossip, jokes, and political intrigue. But coffee houses are also sites of tension. The church views them with suspicion, associating coffee with the Ottoman Empire and moral looseness. The government monitors conversations, wary of sedition. Arguments can turn violent. A careless word about the Doge or the Council of Ten can lead to arrest. By the 1750s, Venice had become famous for its coffee culture. Café Florian, opened in 1720, attracted visitors from across Europe. These spaces represented a new kind of public sphere where ideas could be shared and challenged outside the control of church or state. Remarkably, Café Florian still operates in Piazza San Marco today, making it one of the oldest continuously running coffee houses in the world.
This is the Jewish Ghetto. This view shows the Ghetto Nuovo on a gray afternoon in the 1710s. The square is enclosed by tall, narrow buildings, some rising 6 or 7 stories, their facades stained and crumbling. In the foreground, a group of children play near a well. In the midground, a rabbi in a long coat walks toward the synagogue entrance. Laundry hangs between windows. The space feels compressed, crowded. The ghetto is home to Venice's Jewish population, numbering around 2,000 by the early 1700s. At night, the gates are locked from the outside. Jews are required to wear identifying badges. They cannot own property outside the ghetto. But within these walls, there is a vibrant community: scholars, merchants, moneylenders, physicians. The synagogues, built into the upper floors of ordinary buildings, are richly decorated with gilded wood and Hebrew inscriptions.
Venice in the 1700s was a city of contradictions, glorious and decaying, cosmopolitan and insular, free and controlled. Walking these streets, you would have felt the weight of history in every stone, the presence of a civilization that had built itself on water and will.
And somehow, despite everything that has changed, that feeling remains. These reconstructions take weeks of research and rendering to create, and your support through subscribing helps me continue bringing forgotten worlds back to life. Every city has its story. Every era has its secrets. If there's another city, another moment, or another scene you'd like me to reconstruct, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear what fascinates you about the past. Again, thank you so much.